How are you, class? In our last lesson, we looked at the development of sports in the Oriental nations or the ancient nations. Who can tell me some of the countries that we discussed are some of the nations that developed some of the sports that are played today? Now, which country played a game similar to the football that we have today? Today, we are going to look at the history and development of ancient Olympic Games. Now, Olympic Games, as we know them today, the organization and the programming is not the same that they were in the ancient days. Now, these games, the ancient Olympic Games, were fundamentally religious ceremony for the Hellenic world. When we talk about Hellenic world here, we are referring to the Hellenic world of the Greek people. Now, during these periodic gatherings in the high moral standards of what you call the Hellenic judges, the ones who are able to look at the participants as they prepare for the games and even to judge them during the games, these particular games were played across, people came from across the seas and others traveled from different islands to be able to take part in these particular games. Now, they felt united by one particular common past. So, these games were meant for the Greeks, and they felt that they were united by one thing that was there in common. Now, these people were bound together by the same beliefs because they believed in their games. They were inspired by the same dreams. So, they did things that they believed in because these games were not just being participated for sake of it. They were doing it because they know there were moral attachment to these particular games. Now, the soul of the Greeks was born in the open. Nature to them was broad, deep, and living concept. What do we mean by this? By saying that nature to them was broad and deep. They believed that when things were done in the open, they appeased their God, because that is where they knew that the spirit of the gods was supposed to be found. So that's why most of the games were done in the open. They worshipped in the open, they lived in the open, they worked in the open. So to them, the world were things that were in the open. It was the mountains, the valleys, the springs, the flowers, anything that is connected to the outside is what they believed in, because they thought that their God were pleasant and they were able to appease their spirit. They knew that there was life in nature and that everything in nature was written to their spirit, just like I said. And to them, their gods were to be found in nature. So that's why they participated in the valley where there were flowers, there were springs, there were mountains, and so. Their games were part of their religious cult. So to them, the Olympic Games were not just games, it was a religious cult. It was one part of their religious cult, something they believed in. And therefore, they had to do it, and these ones were done annually. They collectively worshipped the Zeus. They gave sacrifices to the Zeus. They sacrificed to the Apollo and the other god that you call the deities in the sacred area. The fame of these games reaffirmed their linguistic and also religious and moral and social unity of the Greeks. So that means the games became very famous, and that tells them how they were united as the Greeks. So it reaffirmed their religious belief and also their linguistic beliefs. Now, every man to prepare for these particular games was a physical and moral test. Because why do we call it a moral test or physical test? Because one, they had to leave their homes. They go to the training camp for 10 months without coming back home. So that was a true test, physical test. Moral test, they were supposed to be there. So this one, that stay in the camp of training for 10 months meant a lot to the people of Greeks. Now, they were supervised by the Hellenic judges to be able to prepare for these particular games. These games promoted mobility of the man. People came from different highlands and also part of the Greeks to take part in these games. They came to watch the statue-like men. People traveled even all the way from Egypt, which are other countries that valued games, to be able to take part in this, to participate in the games. Now, the ancient Olympic Games started as a natural festival that were held in major cities. And that is the hands to be able to honor their god. And the god, there was a natural hero whom we call Zeus. Now, festivals comprised of social amusement, poetry, drama, activities that involve bodily strength. Who can tell me, in our current societies, what are some of the activities that involve bodily movement? Class? What are some of the activities that we take part in our festivals that we hold, even in our schools? Now, the most famous Olympic Games or festival was Honor of the Zeus, was done in a stadium that had a capacity of 40,000 spectators, and that was too many people during that particular time. So it was a big event that was recognized. Games were referred to as the Pan-Hellenic Games. Why? Because they involved the entire Hellenic races that they were renewed after every 4 years, that we call the Olympiad. Now, the contestants who were supposed to take part in these games didn't walk to the games. Like I said, that they were supposed to stay in the training for 10 months. So that is one of the qualifications for these games. Number two, they were supposed to be free men. What does that free man mean? To be free, what does it mean that to be free, class? When I say that you're free, what does that mean? It means that maybe, for instance, you're not in jail. You can be able to move about. You can make your plan of the way your day is going to be. At the same time, you to abide by the rules by swearing an oath. Now, this oath is being sworn even in the current Monad Games. When the participants go, like I said, when you're looking at the terminologies, this oath has to be sworn. And then at the same time, they had to have no criminal record. So if you have criminal record, you're not supposed to take part in these particular games. Now, question, were the ancient Olympic Games just for men? Were women taking part in these games? Yes, it was only for men. And the men who took part in these games were doing it naked. It was for boys and men. And they were taking part in the games when they were naked. That means they didn't go to the arena with clothes. The married women were not allowed to take part in the games, except the unmarried women who went to watch the games. However, these unmarried women were allowed to be able to take part in concurrent in other games to appease the wife of Zeus. The only women who could take part in these particular games to view was the goddess of the fertility. And these ones, she sat next to the stadium altar. So that is where she could be able to view the game from. Otherwise, any other married women were not supposed to take part in there, or allowed to view these games. But for unmarried women, they were supposed to come and see the games, but not to take part in them. Now, along with the athletic contests held in the ancient Olympia, there were separate festival, foot races, for the unmarried girls, like I said, and these were to appease the god of Zeus. Now, the first Olympic Games that was recorded was done in 776 BC. That's before Christ. Now, at first, it was done during the full moon. That was the month of August, around the middle of July, sorry, not August, but middle of July. And this was done for the honor of the Zeus, the god. Now, the first recorded, I think, is 776, and this was referred to be World Games. Now, this World Games is not the world that we know. World, according to the definition of the Greek people. The people whom they were able to unite and come, they viewed them to be the world. Now, the winner of this particular first game, which was held in 776 BC, was called Coroibos of Heres. He is the one who won this particular race. That was a race. And from that particular day, anybody who won this particular game was supposed to be recorded, and the Olympiad was supposed to be named after them. So the first Olympiad was called Coroibos. Coroibos, named after the first victor. And from there henceforth, they were being named, every Olympiad was named after the victors of the games. Now, these particular games were comprised, they started as one-day event. This added 2 more days, they became 3 days, and further, it went to 5 days. And these 5 days were comprised of, the first day was the day of sacrifice to the Zeus and the other god. They sacrificed a pig. The second day was day of the chariot races and the horses riding. The third day was day of touring the Olympia. They started from the entrance of the Olympia Olympiad, and then they proceeded to the ambassador from the Greek cities, and then the boys' event took part in the rest of the afternoon. On the fourth day was still another day of the activities. That's where they did the wrestling and the boxing. And then the last day was the day of closing the event, and this is where they gave the gift to the winners. Now the gifts were the olive leaf, a crown of olive leaf, or the leaf of the olive leaf. That were the ones who were supposed to be awarded the winner. And later in the afternoon, in the evening, they were supposed to party until morning to be able to make merry for the winners. Now, spectators came from Greek, the mainland, and even from the highland, the ones who took part in these games. And to facilitate movement of the spectators for the religious games, and also for the sake of the religious games, then there was what you call the Olympic truce, which is their event today that was initiated in 2003. Now, this particular Olympic truce was an Olympic truce to call for the peace, so that people can be able to travel with safety, to call for the safety of the participants and the safety of the people who came to take part in the games, or rather to spectate the games. Now, this particular truce started with 1 month, then later progressed to 3 months. This is where everybody, if there was a given community that was fighting against the other, they were supposed to stop the fight. They maintained peace so that people could be able to travel and come and view the games, come and take part in the games with safety. Now, there were no wars that were permitted. So that means even if the two communities were fighting, they came to view the games, they went back again. So it tells us that the games were there to unite the people, because if you are fighting, we stop the fight, we go to fight, and we go for games, and we'll come back, we come united, so we can't continue with the fight. So therefore, it shows that these games united them. No, there was no hindrance was given to spectator. So administrative officials, missions representing particular cities traveled to the games regardless of where you came from. So there's nobody who was told not to travel. People came from different parts of the Greeks, and they took part in the event, or they came to watch these particular games. Now, the procedure of the games was that the game started with the procession that started from the host town of Hellas and proceeded to the Olympia, just like it is today in the modern Olympic Games. Now, there is one particular symbol I call the Olympic torch. Olympic torch is normally installed in Athens even today. And it's during the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, it is normally carried to the site of the event on foot. So this is the same procession that we see in the current Olympic Games. It was done even then. Now, on arrival to the Olympia, all athletes were supposed to take the oath, just like we have it today. They take the oath, although the captains take the oath. They are not going to use unfair way to win the games. And then all the naked athletes and judges who officiated the games were permitted to pass through the entry gate. So it means that the other people who took part in the games could not enter through the entrance. It's only the people who participated and the officials and the judges, and these ones entered when they were naked. Now, this a diagram that shows what you call the crypt. Crypt is the official entrance to the Olympia. So all these judges and the participants who took part in these games entered through this particular crypt. And they entered when they were naked. And that maybe explains why the married women were not supposed to take part, or allowed to be part of these games, because they could not dare to see their men naked. Then prizes for the winners. Anybody who took part in the games and won, they are awarded. At first, in the beginning when the game started, they were just getting material things like the shield, the ampolla. This is like a pot filled with olive leaves. But from 752 before Christ, they started receiving things like the food rations, a crown of olive leaves, and also money. Now, this is a picture of the crown, the way it was made. Anybody who won, the winner was given this crown of the olive leaves. Now, these games continued. But by 393 AD, Greece was governed by a certain emperor called Christian Emperor Theodosius I. Now, this guy ordered for the closure of these particular games because they had lost their spiritual meaning. One, the intellectual education were intensified. Like I said that when the Romans conquered Greece, they never understood the meaning of these particular games. And therefore, during the scholasticism era, everybody started becoming the scholar, if you remember. And therefore, when they started becoming the scholar, they never understood why they were to take part in the games. They forgot. The games were forgotten. The physical fitness was forgotten. So they all went to becoming scholar. Number two, there was commercialization of this Olympic festival. That means the Romans did not understand fully the moral value attached to these games. So it became a business as usual. They started making sure that whoever wins is given a lot of money. And therefore, anybody could take part, like we have in the modern Olympic Games. People are not taking part in the games because they love them. It's because it has become a business or a way of earning a living. Then the professionalism found its way. Athletes were no longer contented with the simple olive leaves. Now we have seen that this was the gift for the winner. You can imagine after spending all the rest of your maybe 2 or 3 years participating, you realize that this is the only gift you're going to get. Just leaves from the olive tree. So they felt that that was not enough, and they wanted to be awarded better. So that therefore brought the closure of the games. Then the athletes started being glorified than the Zeus. Remember, we said that these games were meant to appease their god, Zeus. That was their senior most glorified god. But when the Romans conquered Greece and the games started becoming more commercial, therefore the winners started getting more glory as compared to the Zeus. And therefore, it means that the moral attachment of the games was lost. Then we have the stronghold Christianity growth. Like I said that when Romans conquered Greece, Romans made the Greeks to become more of Christians as compared to before. So because Romans believe in Catholicism, they made the Greeks also to start believing in the spiritualism. And therefore, once more, the games were forgotten. And they started now looking at the spiritual growth to be of more importance than what? Than the physical growth. Then the opposition of the Romans, who are very much unsympathetic to the Greeks' way of life. The Romans never, like I said, they never understood why these particular games were held. So they started becoming very unsympathetic. They never wanted them to practice the games the way they were doing it before. Then we have the rise of the Roman Empire and also the fall down of the Greek Empire as the world power. So the Greeks could not control then the destruction of the Olympia Stadium. Now, like you said that we had 3 stadiums that were dedicated to certain god to appease them. Now, a certain earthquake came and destroyed this particular stadium. And the people of Athens never wanted these games to be held in another city. Therefore, they felt that the game should stop. Because of these reasons, therefore, Theodosius felt that these games were not supposed to continue. And therefore, he ordered the closure of these games. So, from 393 AD, the games were closed. When these particular games were closed, they never continued taking part. Until later in 1870, like I said, a certain scholar from France by the name Baron Pierre de Coubertin felt that the world had become a brutal place to live, and therefore he started looking for something that is going to make these particular people of the world to be together, and he identifying sport to be one. So between 1870, he started campaigning for having games as the way of uniting the people of the world. And therefore, by 1896, we had the first modern Olympic Games that was held still in Athens. They were honored by having the games started there. So between 393 AD and 1896, there were no games that were held, we refer to be the Olympic Games. And that's so now the introduction of the modern Olympics that we have today. Now, to conclude, we have seen that ancient Olympic Games started in which country, class? Yes, we have seen that these games started in Greece. And to them, it meant a lot. They were meant to appease their god, Zeus, and the other gods. They were participated only by boys and men who took part when they were naked. And these games were supposed to be held in open places, near the valley, near the sea, near the rivers. And one and to train for 10 continuous months without breaking for you to be able to take part in these particular games. And still, you have to be free for you to be able to avail yourself for 10 months of training. So that's bring us to the end of our lesson today. And in our next lesson, we are going now to look at the introduction of the modern Olympic Games and how it has been able to develop up to what we have today. So for the winners were awarded a crown of olive leaves, like I said. And these games first took part in 776 BC until what you have today. The exercise is that what are the challenges faced by the ancient Olympic Games that are experienced even in the modern Olympic Games? There were some games, the games who had participated in the ancient Olympic Games, they went through some problems. And we still have similar problems today. So the question is, what are these challenges that were faced by the ancient people that we also face in the modern world? Look at that. That brings us to the end of the lesson for today.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.